Welcome to MACMA's Audience Architect, where we are crafting the future of audience engagement. Our mission is to dive into the intricacies of the ever-evolving media and publishing landscape through the sharp lens of audience and marketing professionals. Each episode will unravel the meaning and perspective on trends that are shaping the industry. Welcome to episode 4 of the Audience Architect podcast. I'm your host, Bill Levine, and today we're diving deep into a topic that has taken the publishing world by storm and is on the agenda at every publishing industry conference, and that is intent or purchasing intention data. Some think of it as the heartbeat of today's data-driven programmatic and advertising and lead gen solutions. So why is there so much buzz around intent data? At its essence, intent data unravels the intricate tapestry of audience or user behaviors, their frequency of engagements, preferred channels, and aligns it with demographics. This alignment allows us to predict with greater accuracy than ever before an individual's likelihood to purchase specific products or services pitched by advertisers. Many B2B publishers and events companies are now presenting this innovative tool to their advertisers and exhibitors, and it's rapidly becoming a cornerstone of audience development strategies. Purchasing intention in the B2B realm is powered by a combination of technologies like customer data platforms and predictive analytic tools, and increasingly probably AI and machine learning, all of which analyze behavioral insights from web analytics, CRM systems, and social media engagement. More about that with our guest. So whether you're a seasoned publisher, an advertiser on the hunt for the next big thing, or someone simply curious about the shifts in the publishing landscape, this episode promises enlightening insights. Let's decode the mechanics of intent data and understand its transformative potential. So fasten your seatbelts, data enthusiasts, as we demystify, decode, and design the roadmap to mastering intent data. Let's architect the future. Audience Architect is a content service of MACMA, the Media Audience and Content Marketing Association. Supercharge your career with MACMA's paid membership. Connect with industry experts, thought leaders, and like-minded professionals. Expand your knowledge and stay ahead with networking events, webinars, and conferences. Join MACMA today for unparalleled value and professional growth. Check us out at www.the-macma.org. Thanks, as always, to Lisa Pistilli and the gang at MACMA. Ladies and gentlemen, today on the Audience Architect podcast, we're honored to have a very special guest with us, Len Roberto, a name synonymous with product innovation and forward-thinking strategies in the world of data-driven audience development. Len has been at the forefront of the intent data revolution, with a career spanning nearly 30 years working in companies like Informa, Northstar, Little Mgmt, Canon, Penton, Wicks Business Information, and starting out in B2B old school print circa 1995, Len has not only witnessed but actively shaped the transition toward a more predictive and intelligent way of understanding and business publishers and corner office jockeys out there monetizing audience behavior. Most recently, Len has been employed in the division of Informa Markets known as Qualifi, which unfortunately is winding down this month. While they pioneered in data-driven advertising and lead gen solutions and saw steady growth, it wasn't enough to meet Informa's expectations. So now, on the lookout for fresh opportunities, Len is leaning towards roles in media, events, or any content-driven firms with rich customer database. Today, he'll unpack his journey with the intent data at Qualifi, explore its significance for publishers, the inherent challenges, and the invaluable lessons drawn from their experience. His expertise in intention data is unparalleled, and today he's here to share his wealth of knowledge, insights, and predictions for where this transformative tool is heading. So whether you're new to this realm or well-versed, Len's perspective promises to be enlightening. Without further ado, let's dive into this deep reservoir of knowledge with Len Roberto. Len, welcome to the podcast. It's great to have you.
Oh, thank you so much for that introduction. That was quite amazing. Thank you. Glad to be here.
Awesome. So I think we start from the beginning. Len, can you kick us off by defining intention data and its significance in audience development?
Sure. The way I looked at it was it's important because it's very recent. So it's a topic-based way of learning what companies, what domains are researching a certain set of topics in a time frame. So it's not people-based, it's not individual-based, it's company-based, but it's a way of learning what companies, using machine learning, it scans a page, it knows the topics that are assigned to that page, and then you can look in that framework and see what companies are showing surges or spikes in research. It uses a scoring system. You can see, assign a number of value to it for a time frame. So you can get really, really recent and say, okay, I know this set of companies is doing a lot of research on this set of topics that I'm interested in, my company's interested in, or my clients are interested in, which is what we were using it for. So it was a way of combining demographic information, behavioral information, all the stuff we knew about our first party data. All of you publishers have a great first party data set, an audience. Now you can put on top of that, you can know, all right, within there, these companies are really doing a lot of research, so they're more important. They're somewhere farther down the funnel. We can put a higher priority on these companies, add them into our mix, and it became a very powerful tool to increase our metrics and make everything we were doing a little bit stronger, because this data was very recent and very on topic.
Great start. I have like 428 questions I want to ask just as you were saying that. But let's ask how your journey began in the realm of intent data and what catalyzed your interest.
This was a new group, as you mentioned, that we were born within during the COVID realm, and we were trying to figure out how we can serve our exhibitors. Trade shows were not happening, so we were trying to figure out how can we use this amazing set of data, millions of records of attendee data, and how can we serve our customers without trade shows happening. So we came up with a series of products. We were going to utilize our data. We were going to serve programmatic advertising campaigns and lead gen campaigns to our exhibitors in lieu of them not having a stand at one of our trade shows. And during that journey, we started to hear about intent data, and we had some relationships already with some companies, and we decided, is there a way we can incorporate this information into our product offering in a new way? It was a wealth of data. There was a lot of amazing information that we could glean from that. How can we put it into our product mix and offer it to our exhibitors as an add-on, something extra, as well as making the segments we were going to create for them and serve ads to make them better? Can we use this information in some kind of a trend reporting analysis? Can we use it that way? And that's how it evolved from there as a way of providing a look into their market. We started to call it, a research intelligence report. There were all kinds of names we came up with, but it was a way of sharing this information with our clients to show them what was happening in their sphere, in their world, in their set of topics they were interested in. And it grew from that, and it became really, really important. People really started to rely on it, push us to come up with new ideas. And it became a really, really important part of the product mix and the sales process to convince exhibitors that they should do a program with us, because we were not only had the best first party data, but now we had this other layer of information on top of it. And it became a big selling point. And then after that, it became a big part of the ongoing relationship that we had with these exhibitors. And it became really, really important.
What changes or additions did you need to make at your tech stack or with a CDP or with any technology to enable what you were doing, either internal or also third-party vendor services?
We did have a CDP. It was originally Lytics, then it changed to Treasure Data, and this information was critical. The intent data was important that we get it flowing into the CDP in some way. So we did have to arrange that. The topics, all of the topics that were in the taxonomy, the scoring system, and there was also a way that we could identify using technology that's way beyond my my bailiwick, but there was a way to match up individuals with the IDs that were coming from the intent company and the IDs that we had to say, okay, we knew that this person was doing research on these topics and here was their score. But then also we applied that to everybody that we had at the company. So coming into our CDP was crucial because it was used while I was building segments. I can refer to the intent scoring and say that I wanted to add in people that had an affinity to this topic. And then the intent provider themselves had a wonderful insights reporting tool that I became very familiar with, where I could go in and do lookups, and I can do all kinds of other things that really helped while we were on calls with clients to show them the power of this as well. So I was using the tools provided by the intent provider, which were very important, very in-depth, many, many different reports. And then it was also flowing into our CDP, so we could access it in both places, and one augmented the other, because we would get the additional names of the companies from the tool, incorporate them back into the segment, and see if we had any matches. So it became a very powerful way to use all the power that they were telling us was we could do it inside and outside.
The intent company, I think that you're referring to is Bombora, correct?
Yes. Yep. That was our provider. They're one of the top 5 or 6 in the space. I know there's many, many out there. And we also looked at the idea of having our own, intent. All of you publishers, all of us can have your own intent framework, but it's only going to be based on your own websites, right? Your own sphere. So you can create this technology using your own. All of your web pages can be tracked. I'm sure that's done now. You can create a taxonomy. You can, tag your pages and know which companies, if you can identify them. Again, the technology is a little bit above my head. I just know how to use it. I don't know how it's built, but you can see who's looking at your pages, and that's great. And that was part of what Bombora did for us as well. All of our pages, Informa's pages, were tracked. And that's great to a point. If you have a lot of editorial and you have a great system of whatever, you can say, I know who's coming to my pages. I can derive an intent signal from them. I know what they viewed. I know the topics. But if you can now expand that to be in a wider net, and that's what these intent companies do, is they have much wider views outside of your own sphere. You can say now your net is very, very wide. You have thousands of companies that you're seeing, millions of pages, and now you have a much better picture globally of what's happening. Bombora's average is 26 billion page views a month, roughly average, that they're seeing, that they're tracking, and they're classifying that into a taxonomy of 13 or 14,000 topics. So you have a much wider view, and you can say, okay, I have a much bigger picture to glean those intent signals from, because it is so wide.
I know a lot of our members are interested in making sure they're adhering to privacy laws, which are going to be increasingly stricter. How, in this case, were you able to rationalize the privacy piece of it, or is there even a privacy piece of it?
There is, and that is one of the things that it took a lot to explain and educate with clients and exhibitors when we're talking about this, because there is a little bit of, I heard the word creepy. It's creepiness, they're spying on us, and it's really not that. And that's internally, there was a lot of overcoming negativity to that as well. It's an anonymous thing. You can't see where the data is coming from when we're looking at those 26 billion page views. You can't say, I want to know what that company's over there that's in the group, or no one could see ours. No one can say, I want to see what Informa's people are looking at, or Informa's pages. It's totally anonymous. So there is privacy and concerns in there, but I believe it because it's not an individual based. It's only based on a domain, an IP address, that I believe that's mitigated. So we were fine with that. But when you're talking about it with clients, you do have to explain to them this very thing. It's not creepy. It's not. We're not spying on people. It's simply looking at, same thing that happens when you go to Amazon or whatever, and you're looking at shoes, and then you go somewhere else and see the ad for the shoes. They're just looking at what your behavior is for your fingerprint online, your online fingerprint, and then you can look that up. So it's not ever based on an individual. Even though we could match that up in our CDP, we were never calling people and saying, "Oh, we know you looked at such and such yesterday." So it's not that level, but and I believe Bombora takes care of all of that. There is some blocking. There's, if you wanted to block this information, there are ways to do that on your own network or machine. So that happens as well. So there are. It's not a blanket. You can't see everybody that's doing this research on a certain topic. There are holes and blockages. So that's just, again, you have to take this all with a grain of salt and realize that when we say an intent signal, yes, all this is very important to kind of point you in the direction of, I know these companies are actively researching, but it's never going to be all. It's never going to be 100% coverage. There's always going to be some that are not participating, but it will still give you a much better idea of what's happening in your marketplace.
Let's get down and dirty a little bit about how Qualifi used intent data in your product offering.
Yeah. So again, we were a little bit different because we were using this information for my group to monetize this, to create products and entice an exhibitor to run a program with us, because our first party data was so strong, because we could identify and target their profiles that they wanted to reach. And then we were using it as an add-on to this. It wasn't for our own developing our own audience or finding new people. We were solely using it for our clients. So it became that we would meet with a client. We would have a discussion about who their personas is, who do you want to reach, what industry is it in, what size of company, all that wide range of demographic information that they would give us. I would use that to go in and create a segment. I would study their company a little bit. I would learn from them from a discovery call. Okay, I'm looking at omega. I want to find people that are interested in omega-3s because my company provides ingredients for companies that use omega-3s. Okay, I would use that information. I would go into the taxonomy, into the intent framework, and say, okay, are there any topics out there that are related to this? And sometimes you'd find one right on the money. Okay, omega-3s is a topic. Perfect. Sometimes it might be a little bit more tangential. It's protein related or something else. I would find those topics. I would go into the Bombora framework. I would say, okay, let me see the companies that are interested in spiking in omega-3 as this topic in the last month. Because again, I want to be really recent. I didn't care about going back 6 months. I wanted to go back very recently to show the client that this is up to date. We would meet with the client, we'd go over the audience, we'd show them who I built for them using all of Informa's wonderful first-party data and our trade shows and all the behavior and the appending and the enriching and the all this information that we have gleaned about the people you want to reach. Here it is. Then I would go into this second part. Clear on that? Okay, now we go into intent. What is it? I would have to explain what it is. Why is it important? What does it do? How is it generated? We'd go over that in a simplified format because it can get really complicated. Some exhibitors would get this right away. They would understand it. Some people needed a lot more discussion. Show me what you mean. Tell me more about it. How do you get this? Why is it okay? How is the privacy? Same things you're asking. We'd go through it. I'd say, okay, look, in the last week, there's 500 companies that have spiked more research than normal on omega-3s. We can narrow that down by geography. We can narrow it down by the size of the company. We can narrow it down by what type of company they are. Oh, you only want food and beverage manufacturers. Okay, there's 500 companies that are food and beverage manufacturers in the last week that have shown huge interest in omega-3s. These are people that we want to make sure that we can reach. I would take that information and put it back into our CDP and say, okay, of those 500 companies, Informa has 280 of them. We matched 280 of them. So they're definitely going to be in your segment, Mr. Client. getting really into the weeds here, but the point of this is that 99 out of 100 people that we spoke to, when we showed them this path, and it took a lot of time to evolve and get to this level of the script, let's say, everybody by that point would say, this is great. I love it. I see that you have the right personas. I see you have the right data. I showed them where our data comes from, and I would actually give them a peek into the CDP and say, here is your segment that I built for you. And it would have all of that information to show them here's how it's built. Here's where it came from. And then we get to step 2. We're going to layer on this intent data, explain what it is. By the time that was done, they were usually all in. Now, the trouble came after that when it became budgets and pricing and all of that stuff. But the process and the explanation and the revealing of the information to them about the data itself, the audience itself, they all bought into that right away, saw the value there, saw the value in the intent data. And then, part 3 is you're going to actually see every month and every quarter, we're going to share with you this intent information in a report format. We're going to produce it for you and give it to you as part of the product, as part of what you're buying. You're going to buy into a subscription-based thing that was a minimum of 6 months. We were trying to get people into 12 months. Over that time, you're going to get these reports every month. You'll see what is happening in your market. All those people that are interested in omega-3s, those companies, every month you'll get an update. You'll see the names of the companies, of who they are. That's all we would reveal, is the names. We know these companies are interested in your topic. It was an additional tool for our clients to know that we are covering this market for you. We're your marketing partner. Here are the companies interested in omega-3s this month. Take it and run with it. Look in your CRM, see if you know who they are, see if your salespeople know who they are, give them a call. You know who they are. It's knowledge for you. Again, we would use it to refresh that audience every month. As the campaign is running, I would look at that company list, see if we had any matches, put them back into the segment, serve them those programmatic ads, and that would continue on. So it would grow through the campaign using the intent signal data knowledge that would help us enhance the file every month so that we were always serving the most recent, the most focused, and the most up-to-date people that matched our clients' needs. And that became pretty powerful. It did increase our metrics and our KPIs, and our click-through rates doubled, tripled sometimes using this, feeding in those intent companies. So it became very important. And then that reporting became really, really valuable to clients. It was something they looked forward to, something they would use. And then that sparked new things. Like the idea was, can this help drive renewals? Can it help convince people that metrics are good, audience is good, data is good, intent reporting is valuable? I want to renew with Qualifi. I want to do this again because it's working for me. And that we would meet with them regularly, monthly, quarterly. We would have a sit down and say, here's what's happening. Here's what we did right. Here's what didn't work. Here's which part of the segment did really well. Here's which part of the segment we need to adjust. And what is that intent data telling us? And it became really valuable for certain clients. I'll give you a couple of examples. One of our clients was really pushing us. They were one of the early adopters. They understood what we were doing. And they came to us and said, we love this intent data. It's really important. But what are we going to do with it? What can it help? How can it help us? How can we drive more leads? How can we spend more money with Informa by using this intent data? What can we do with it? So
you're right. Like that return on investment question. Ultimately is what it boils down to. All the technology, all the data wizardry is amazing. But then they think about, okay, what am I getting out of it? Right.
Exactly. And that became one of the biggest issues that we had is you can't just dump this information to a client and give it to them. You have to explain it. You have to recommend. You have to analyze it. So we created a quarterly report of about 6 or 7 pages that would say, okay, now we're gonna look back a year. Here's the trend that's happening for your topics. Whether it's one topic or 50 topics in their cluster, we would show them what is happening. Because the data will tell you, okay, I'm interested in topic X. I think topic X is really, really important. And we would show them this report and say, well, actually, it's topic Y is much more important than topic X in the last 3 months, 6 months, a year. And that would kind of change their thinking and say, oh, I didn't realize that. This is new. And so that was really important. And then it would also show you the trends over the months. Here's the seasonality of what's happening in my market. I can see that October is really, really more important than April when I thought it was the reverse. So that kind of information would come out in these discussions. And then this one client I mentioned, we looked at the data. We looked at when are you exhibiting at another show coming up? Oh, I see in September, you're coming to a show that we're having. And the data is telling us that in September, it seems to be a really hot period here. So I had the idea, just off the cuff, on the call with this client, not even checking with people, which I had got my wrist slapped for that, but it was, hey, what if we had a sit down in person get together at the show that you're going to be at? You're exhibiting there. What if we could have a lunch or a talk or a room or whatever, and invite people to come and listen to you? If we know the topic is spiking and we know that they're going to be there at the show, let's see if we can do this. And they love that. And they paid us $15,000 for that. And we did a marketing campaign. We went to the show team. We said, we have this idea. Okay, this will work. Let's have it was called a coffee talk. Let's have an hour-long block of time in a room. We'll serve coffee and refreshments, and let's market to them. So we used, again, our demographics, the people we knew that were pre-registered coming to the show. Then we reached out a little farther and we said, okay, let's look at the intent companies. Even though they might not be pre-registered, let's ask them anyway. Hey, let's see if you can come to this meeting in September in Boston, and we're going to invite you to the show. It became an adjunct to the marketing registrations for the show as well. We knew these people are interested. Let's put them on the reg list and see if they want to come to this event. And we were expecting 20 to 30 people to come into the room. The client was happy with that. That would be great if we can sit down and talk to 20 or 30 really focused, really targeted people. We got 221 to register and 70 showed up. So it was double what we wanted. And the client was also fine with understanding that this is a future thing, right? These people might not want your product or your service right now, but they're interested enough to know that they want to learn about you now, so that maybe 8 months from now, when they do need your service. So that was fine too. That was one of the things that we tried to really make a point of, that, maybe you want to expand a little bit because, you want to reach people that are going to be clients, not the ones that are right now.
And did the clients think that those 70 people in the room were the right room, even if they weren't ready to pull the trigger and buy right away?
They did. I think it was about 3/4 of them were right on the money. The other quarter were good companies that they wanted to reach, but might not have been exact targets right now. So they were very thrilled with it, very happy with it. And then this sparked us to continue this. Okay, let's use the intent data. Let's look at it and really make a recommendation for the clients when we're meeting with them, because that was one of the things that we heard over and over and over again. I love this. It's great. It's telling me good information, but how do I use it? What do I do? How can I get more business? How do I get more leads? So it became a way of, what else can we recommend? What else can we do? What else can we offer? Maybe you want to do a lead gen campaign in November because it looks like this is a really good time to do it. And even beyond that, maybe you don't even want to do a campaign with us, but maybe in April, it's telling you maybe you want to create your own white paper or something. The data was pointing them in a direction that they wouldn't have had without it, because it was looking at what the recency and when they should be doing this. It was important to them. It became a really important thing as we progressed through the contracts and the campaigns with these clients.
We'll be right back. Audience Architect is a content service of MACMA, the Media Audience and Content Marketing Association. Supercharge your career with MACMA's paid membership. Connect with industry experts, thought leaders, and like-minded professionals. Expand your knowledge and stay ahead with networking events, webinars, and conferences. Join MACMA today for unparalleled value and professional growth. Check us out at www.the-macma.org. Thanks, as always, to Lisa Pistilli and the gang at MACMA. So I really think this angle of the perfect time is sort of new anyway to B2B, maybe not on the consumer side. So that's an incredible insight. Now put it together with the what. So as far as lead gen, can you give a little bit more detail? Are we talking about sort of content download programs or other kinds of programs? What did lead gen look like?
Yes, exactly. That's what it was. We had two parts. We had programmatic advertising, and then we had lead gen. So we would offer both. You didn't have to do both if you wanted to. Some clients had a ready-made piece of content, a wonderful report or an e-booklet or a white paper. They had that, and they were using it. So some clients didn't have that. Some clients only wanted to stick with display advertising across the spectrum that we offered, and that was fine too. So we would get an asset from them, or 5 or 10 assets from them. We would target differently if needed. Maybe this piece of content only you wanted to go to the C-suite people, while the other piece of content would be better for the engineers. So we could split that up. We could segment multiple ways. We would host that content, and we would drive people to a page that we would create that would host the content. People would put in their information. That lead would go directly to the clients. And we did this really, really carefully. We didn't just say, you're going to get 50 leads this month. Here you go. Nope. We would start with like 5 leads for the week. We're going to use our own demographic data again to power that. We're going to add in the intent data. And sometimes we would only use the intent data. So here's the 500 companies again I mentioned. We're going to only target those 500 for this week or two and analyze what is working the best, which is providing you the best leads. We'd get those 5 leads, we would look at them, we would share them. The client would share with us, okay, these 3 leads are really good, perfect. These 2, not so much. Okay, let's see if we can adjust and do the next week's 5 leads so that we would tailor it down until we got to the point where we were right on target. Another example, one of our clients, really, really niche, really, really targeted. We did this. We got about 20% of the leads. We got them. We're good. Okay, let's adjust. Another month or 2 went by. We made adjustments, corrections, learned from them, learned from the data. By the time we were done, into the 3rd or 4th month, about 80% of the leads we were delivering them were right on the target. And they shared with us, here's all of my marketing going on, and here's the percentages of great leads that are coming. And we were above their average. So we were delivering a higher percentage of really good leads than they were getting from all their other sources, which was enlightening. But it took a lot of work. It wasn't easy. It took a lot of adjustment, a lot of one-to-one discussion and care. It was not a fire and forget thing. We weren't just going to take money and set up your ads and build your audience and then let it run for 12 months. No, we were going to really, really look at it. We had someone on staff who was solely, her job was optimizing, analyzing the campaigns, making adjustments, from everything from desktop to mobile to which social channels are working well, which aren't. Let's change. Let's move the money here. And it was, our metrics went up in most cases from beginning to end of campaign. So we really tried to make it a big part of the process was a partnership.
Len, what was the title of the optimizer person you were just talking about? I think that's a really interesting resource on the team there.
Oh boy, I'd have to look that up. Hold on. Programmatic and audience analyst. There you go.
So is that person more an audience person or more a marketing person purely, or both? I'm curious.
it was a tech person. But she did make a great effort to come over and learn, how are these audiences created? Let's look at the CDP. But she was mostly concerned with, how many impressions are being served? Why are they not serving? What can I do to optimize the campaign within Google DV360 or within LinkedIn, within Facebook? How can I adjust? Len, can we add in some people here? Can we? Is there any people we're missing? Can we add in a certain job function or title? Can we expand the regions a little bit? She would be pushing me to say, we're not serving enough ads. What about it? Or that kind of thing. And that became a big part of the process as well, is making sure that we were delivering the right ads, or we're falling below, or we're going over. Same thing with the leads. This. Is there something we can make an adjustment within our lead generation program to make an adjustment there? So that level of service, that level of looking and checking and reviewing was a big part of what we were doing.
It's certainly a high touch, high level of service kind of proposition that you're talking about. About the leads themselves and, this notion of quality versus pure quantity. How did you deal with advertisers who were mostly focused on quantity? Could you bring them over and convince them and persuade them with the data that you're talking about? Or were some of them just saying, look, my boss has a quota, I have to get 1,000 leads a month or else I'm fired? How did you deal with that? Because that's a real thing, right?
Oh, absolutely. When I hear the word lead generation, I kind of cringe a little bit now anyway, but every company that we talk to has a different view of what a lead is for them, right? And we would have to be really, really clear on that. Some companies would be happy with those 5 leads if they were just wanted to get their brand out there and they were interested in spreading awareness and they were happy with that. Other spectrum, way on the other side. So niche, so in depth, their audience itself, when you would press them on this, and I would always ask them, what is the size of if you could get everybody that you want to reach in a room, how many people would it be? Oh, it's 5,000 people. Okay, that's a really small audience to be wanting, 100 leads from. So that makes it more difficult. So there was always a tension, and we had a lot of struggle with the whole lead gen side of it. A lot of it has to do with the industry, or again, Informa has 14 major divisions that we serve, from jewelry to advanced manufacturing and everything in between. I mean, it's crazy how big it is. So certain industries we were really, really strong in, and the leads were great. We could be focused at the same time that we had a broad enough reach where we had a great pool to start from. We always had to be careful not to be too focused, right? We can't come down and find 200 people in your target pool. That's not going to work. We can't serve ads to that. We needed at least a few thousand. But we could be very, very nichey. We could use, 15 different demographic points on top of the intent data to really, really target, and it would work fine. Other times, other groups, we found that there were struggles. So that has to do with your own data and the size of the audiences, again, that you're targeting. But it became an issue, and we could get it to a point where we would, again, target and focus and change and revise enough where we were delivering what the client wanted. And then honestly, there were others that we could never satisfy. They didn't renew. We tried to make as many changes as we could, as much attention as we could. We just weren't delivering on the whole the numbers that they wanted. And that was just the way it was. We like I said before, we couldn't be, there were some clients that wanted, such a small number of people in the pool that it was just, we could tell from the beginning, or the assets they gave us. It depends on the creative, right? No matter what you have that's as wonderful audience as you have, if you're going to serve them an ad or a piece of content that's not compelling, and you got one arm tied behind your back. It's not going to work. So we had to overcome that too. We didn't have a creative department. We weren't creating ads for people. We weren't creating assets for people. That would have been a whole nother staff that we just didn't want to become a full-time marketing services agency. So we relied on them to provide us with ads, with creative and assets. And sometimes they didn't work out very well.
This leads me to a question about the business of intent data. It seems intent data is premium octane. So as a high touch service, which ostensibly as a publisher or an event company, you would equate that to a high price. Is this a tool of only the top 5%, the top 25 of your customers in each niche? Or because as you have been pointing out, this is an always on proposition. This is not like a set it and forget it or like a 1 month campaign. So how does this lay out for publishers?
I think you might have a lot in what you said and might be correct, and we might have made that mistake. We did try to specifically target the top 25 exhibitors in each segment, or the top 50, or the ones that were spending the most with us. We tried to go after them first, and we did have some success there. But then the flip side of that is that there's a whole lot of exhibitors that are too small, and we did come up against that a lot as well. We're already charging them, a nice price to come and exhibit at our show. Now here we come along offering this solution, which everybody agreed, like I said, was great. Data's great. Everything is wonderful, but you want to charge me this on top of what I'm already paying you. That became an issue. So we had to make adjustments there. When we started reaching out to enterprise level outside of our sphere of exhibitors, we reached out to agencies, big time agencies. Had a lot of really good discussions with the big time agencies. They want first party data. They want to reach people that are a higher cut above than just going into the live rent marketplace, so to speak. But it was a struggle for them to pay what we wanted, right? We overvalued, I think, a lot of what we were serving. I can get the same audience over here for $2 a thousand, and you're charging me a lot more than that. And we would say, it's not the same audience, right? It's different.
Right.
It's people that have come to trade shows. It's people that have come to webinars that we know all this great stuff about. And they go, yeah, that's great, but I can't pay you 10 times as much as okay. So we had to think about that. So the intent data, I think, has a lot of merits for publishers, for media companies, but the way to organize that and create a product roadmap around that is what's the challenge, and what will your clients, what will your advertisers pay for that? That has to be a lot of analysis. We had, before we even began the business, we reached out to 20 or 30 exhibitors that we had good relationships with, that had been with us a long time, and we proposed this. If we did this, and if we offered this, and if we could target your clients and we could send them ads specifically, and oh, that's great, love it, oh, awesome, sign me up. And then it's great until you start talking about the actual what you're going to charge them. But so there's a lot of nuance in there, but definitely it appeals to larger clients. Agencies, though, they want quantity. They want a lot of records, which in some cases we could satisfy millions of records in some cases without a lot of focus on it. And then in other cases, we would just be too small. They wouldn't want to talk to us because, well, you only have 500,000 of those and we want millions. Okay, so that was a lot of the issues that we had. Some worked, some didn't.
It occurs to me that one customer scored by the intent data for these exhibitors, advertisers, etc., rationalized the spend potentially, depending on the lifetime value of that customer, many times over. So is there a sort of barrier that the marketers need to overcome here if they actually track conversions. I know that I once asked a webinar client sponsor, we've given you 675 leads, quote unquote, or registrants from this. Have any converted? And his answer was, I don't know. So is there still that gap between marketers and the actual business development groups? Because as I said, I think one customer or two customers is going to justify this price many times over potentially.
Yeah, we struggled with the attribution game a lot because again, everything we were doing was online. It was trackable, but people would ask us, can I see the names and contact information of the people that clicked on my ads? No, we can't really. We're not going to give that to you. You can capture it if you can, but attributing how many people converted from our campaigns to our clients was always difficult. Some of the ones we knew really, really well, we would ask them, like that one client I mentioned who shared with me, here's how you compare with all my other marketing campaigns. That was illuminating. How many people would it actually take for you? And then there's the sales, their sales process, right? Some of these companies we were dealing with, it's 12 months or a year or more from when they speak to a client to when they close a deal. That's a really long time to attribute back that, okay, the start of the process came from our ad. It's really, really difficult. So we didn't, attribution was always really hard for us, and we got some feedback and renewals. We did have some clients that renewed 2 or 3 times because, okay, we were obviously delivering them what they wanted. And as you know, anything in marketing, if you try it and it works and it's a good ROI, then the business will continue. If it's not going to deliver what they expect, then you're not going to get a renewal. So you're kind of done. And that was a big thing with it. That's why renewals were so very important, was because we knew that if we lose someone, and we did, honestly, we lost some clients, didn't fulfill their expectations and didn't renew. And then now that client's gone forever. So it's a big issue, but attribution was difficult.
Well, I know that we focused mostly on products and monetization as a result of intent data, but what about us drinking our own champagne? A lot of audience development people at MACMA and this audience listening, talk about intent data a little bit for enriching your own audience database.
Sure. Well, we used it for our own information as well. We used it to find clients. We would go in and find the topic for, digital advertising or topics like that, marketing, marketing automation. And we would say, okay, what companies out there in advanced manufacturing, which is one of our big areas, which one of those clients is really interested in digital advertising? And we would look at that list and compare it to our exhibitor list and say, oh, the 5 of those companies are exhibitors that we haven't spoken to yet. We would go and speak to those companies about our program. So we would use it to power our own sales enablement efforts, which was really cool. I've heard from a couple of other companies that use this for their own audience development in a huge way. There was one company that I met with at a trade show, and they were using the intent data within 24 to 48 hours. They had set it up where they could see that companies were spiking on their topic, and they would get that information, and somehow they had it automated within their CRM system to trigger a message. I don't know if it was an email or even a phone call, right? But if I know, back to the omega-3 example, if I know that just yesterday, 10 companies that I want to know about spiked in research on omega-3s yesterday, if I can look them up on LinkedIn or Zoom or wherever and call someone at that company and try to find someone that was doing that research or multiple people, they were getting crazy conversion rates. Now, that's an extreme example, but the idea works the same. If you can isolate companies that are doing research on something that's important to you or your audience, if you can contact them or somehow get them an offer in front of them for your product or your service or your subscription, whatever it might be, now you're ahead of the game, because it's the recency that I think is the most important. And if you hit people at the right time, we've always used that phrase, right? Right people, right message, right time. If you can get them when they're interested, when they're doing research, I need to find someone to serve me this. My boss is on my case to find a vendor, and you're doing this research. If you can reach that person with a solution, well, heck, then you're way ahead of the game, because the timeliness is going to trump everything.
Yeah, back to that right time piece, as well as right message, right channel, etc. But I remember, in the earlier days of the internet, they had web callbacks. So the idea was, oh yeah, you click here and then instantly you have a salesperson on the other end pounding you. So no, not that. But what you're talking about, I think, is really important, because, for example, in my space, research scientists doing drug discovery, they may be spending most of their time in the lab. That's a point at which they are unreachable for marketing messages, because they're out there, creating world and life-saving therapies for hard diseases. But when they take a break, maybe at lunchtime, and then maybe Saturday morning when they're checking their email and they're engaging with your content, that may be the perfect time. You may miss that perfect time if you don't have the right intent signals. So you have the right target, you have the right company, you have intent, but the wrong time. So I really do believe that this holds great hope for the future. And
or there might be someone else at that company. There might be someone that's a colleague that is related to that person, that scientist, who can still get the message and say, hey, I know that you're looking for someone to do this. I just got a message from XYZ company about it. So we tried to expand a lot by looking at people, not just the people that you want. You only want to reach research scientists. Okay, that's very specific. But what about someone else in their department or their group or their company or the C-suite person that might also be involved in the process of finding a vendor or a partner? Let's send them it was an advertisement, right? In our case, email might be different, but if it was an ad popping up to that person, hey, I know Joe down the hall. He was just telling me the other day at lunch that he was looking for this. It does work if you can spread those messages out a little farther than you think.
Well, then let's suspend the challenges for the moment and just gaze into your crystal ball. So given these rapid technological advancements, where do you see the future trajectory of intent data?
Well, I can tell you this. A couple of the people in Informa that I respect and that are doing great online digital business have said to me numerous times that if you're not looking and using intent data in the next 2 years, you're going to be way, way behind. So I thought that was quite powerful enough. The more I read about it, the more I see online and these companies popping up and internal companies looking at it internally to create their own. Like I mentioned, it's becoming really, really important. What we do, what audience development people do, has always been trying to find intent signals, right? We've always been lead scoring. And I used to say this all the time. When you tell me the persona and the company and the what that you're looking for, as soon as I go into my CDP and start typing in criteria, I'm lead scoring right then, right? I'm trying to find people that have the right matching information, which is a great start. And I know that you came to these shows, and I know you came to these webinars, and even to the point of, I know you went into this part of our hall and we scanned your badge. Okay, great. Now on top of it, if I can narrow it down further by saying, using the intent stuff, within a week, within a month, I know you've done research on this. It makes the list smaller, but it also makes the list really, really targeted. So I think it's just going to become really important, more important than it is now, if it's used in the right way. That's the key. That if I learned anything else in the last year and a half doing this, is that it's difficult, it's hard to understand, for clients. If you make them see the light and get some benefit out of it and get some great leads out of it, then it's a win for them. They're going to rely on it. And if the data you can provide and the analysis and the trends helps spark new ideas, like the examples I gave, that's another win. So it has to be done thoughtfully, but everybody that I speak to says it's going to become really vital to the future.
So if you're just starting, it looks like you may have 24 months based on the executive that you were talking to really get your stuff together and get moving on this. What foundational advice can you offer?
I would, there's a couple of great reports out there. I know Forrester just did a report on the top intent companies out there. There's a bunch. I would read that. There's a lot of great information in there. I would talk to some of these companies and decide for yourself which one would be best served for us. If you're in a certain industry, company X might be a better choice than company Y because they're stronger in their spheres that they are tracking. That might be a big part of what will steer you. What kind of tools do they offer to do this analysis? How can you look inside their world and use the tools that they have to identify, and how can you use that? How can it integrate with your systems is another big one. How can this feed into my CDP or my audience database? Can I identify properly, all that stuff? I know there's UIDs all over the place now. And is there a way for you to really know? And if that works out, and then the taxonomy, the topics. One of the downfalls we had is that 14,000 topics sounds wonderful, but there might be a case where there's no topic in there that's exactly for the company I'm talking to. Then it doesn't look great. If I can't find my topic in there, then how's it going to help me? So you've got to try to match that up too. Is the framework, the taxonomy, matching what my real needs are? Because you're only going to have a certain amount. So if you can narrow that down and narrow down the industries and make sure you're in your vendor, your partner that you're going to choose has all of those things, then that's a really good place to be. Developing your own internal intent framework is another good idea too. If you have awesome editorial and you've got multiple touch points for people to read and if you believe you can get a really good idea, if you're the number one in your market and you've got millions and millions of page views every month, well then you can have your own intent framework. Set it up, make a great taxonomy, and categorize those pages in a way that best works for you, and then you'll be able to say, okay, last week I know that these companies hit these topics. You can do it yourself.
Well, as of today, Len, I don't mean to be too glib, but I know you can help companies do this. You are available as such, correct?
I am. Check me out on LinkedIn and please contact me. Love to hear from you.
Well, and while I always find it fascinating to dive deep into professional journeys, I equally love learning about the personal passions that shape and inspire my guests. I noticed you serve on the board of directors for the Connecticut Air and Space Center, and there's this captivating tidbit in your bio about spending your early years at Sikorsky Airport, watching airplanes alongside your grandfather. Can you share more about this passion for aviation and how it's intertwined with your personal history?
Yeah, it's definitely his fault. But I live near Stratford, Connecticut, which is a pretty famous spot for aviation history. So it's kind of cathartic that I'm involved in a museum now. We've been open since May of 21. We had a great summer this year with kids. I organize school trips, class trips, but we are based at Sikorsky Memorial Airport. And the reason that it's important is because we have an aircraft hangar that was built in 1929. That's where our museum is going to be. It's being rebuilt. Amelia Earhart, Charles Lindbergh, famous aviators were in that hangar. We have a logbook signed by them. Right across the street from our museum is where Igor tested and perfected and flew the first helicopter in 1939. And then the factories during World War II, which Connecticut itself was a huge part of industrial production during World War II. The famous iconic F4U Corsair fighter was built there. 7,000 were built right across the street. The buildings still stand, and we have one in our museum. So we educate people on the history of the area, and we talk about aviation in general. And it's a really great part, something to be part of. Where every Sunday I go down there and we meet with people and walk them around the museum, and it's a great thing to be part of for someone who loves airplanes.
Well, the metaphor isn't lost on me here as far as air travel's history and audience development and intent data. So I think we've wrapped this with a nice bow, Len. We really appreciate here at Audience Architect your insight and your specific examples on intent data. Thanks for joining us today.
No problem. If anybody has any questions and they want to reach out, I'd be happy to help if I can.
Great. Thanks, Len. Thanks again to MACMA for supporting Audience Architect podcasts. Shout out to my excellent producer and editor, Camilo Duque of Victoria Records, available to work on your music, podcast, or movie soundtrack. Write me with your feedback on the show and topic ideas for future episodes, the good, bad, and ugly, to Bill Levine at bml0217@gmail.com. Audience Architect is a content service of MACMA, the Media Audience and Content Marketing Association. Supercharge your career with MACMA's paid membership. Connect with industry experts, thought leaders, and like-minded professionals. Expand your knowledge and stay ahead with networking events, webinars, and conferences. Join MACMA today for unparalleled value and professional growth. Check us out at www.the-macma.org. Thanks as always to Lisa Pistilli and the gang at MACMA.